earlier this week, Prince of Persia: Lost Crown. There was a report coming out that they had disbanded the team that made the game, and they had pitched a second game, but had been denied by Ubisoft, and they've actually shifted them over to other teams. One of them being the new Ghost Recon game. The other one is helping on some other game that I can't think of right this minute. And then a lot of them are moving over to another project that is in early development, which is a Rayman Remake, which has been 11 years since the last Rayman game. He did appear in the Mario Rabbids 2 DLC or whatever, but he hasn't had his own game that's part of the actual, like the mainline series since 2013, which that one sold like 5 million copies. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a while, so it's cool that there's a new Rayman game in development, especially with like feels like platformers are all the platforming. When you talk about like the different big time characters have all had a game, even if it's a collection recently, and Rayman's like the one that's been kind of left out. So that's good on that end. And also Michel Ancel, the creator, is back doing that, even though you could argue that like maybe it's not a good idea because every time he's been involved with a game, that game doesn't come out. We talk about Wild.
Good and Evil 2 is just coming out any day now.
And thank you. That's the other game that some of the Montpelier people went over to work on. These still in development, Beyond Good and Evil 2, which Michel Ancel started being involved with, and look how that game has not come out yet. Remember Wilds or whatever that was supposed to be his next.
That did get canceled at least.
Yeah, it got canceled. So, but that's the point. It got canceled, and he's involved with it. So,
well, the problem is it got canceled like 6 years after they announced it, and it's like,
exactly.
It should have happened like a year after you announced it if you weren't serious or whatever.
So it's very unfortunate because go ahead. Sorry.
Once Joseph Gordon-Levitt takes over on Beyond Good and Evil 2, it'll all be worth it.
Exactly. Forgot that they had a game with him.
They didn't have a game, but he came out on stage and was like,
"Yeah,
I want you to make content for this game." And it's like, that's your responsibility. I mean, that's kind of Ubisoft's responsibility, not mine.
Right?
Like,
exactly.
Fuck off. Like,
the thing that's unfortunate about this game is like, it's their biggest critical success in a long while. When you look at their recent games, it just sold over 1 million, and the rest of the stuff of why it didn't sell, supposedly it did not meet sales expectations, is the word flavor of the day for publishers. I don't know how, because this is a Metroidvania. When do Metroidvania sell amazingly well? Metroid is Metroid, right?
The problem is like, well, there's two problems. First of all, it came out like $60, which
or 50, but yes,
Metroid can get away with because it's like a big brand, kind of, and
it's
that has
tied
also
to Nintendo.
It's also been a game that like people have wanted for 20 years. I mean, they haven't been a proper Metroid game since Super Metroid.
But even then, didn't the remaster come out for cheaper? Wasn't it like 40?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dread, that's a new game. That makes sense.
That came out like later, I think, after Metroid Dread. But also, like, what is Ubisoft's... whenever you bring up, like, a company going like, oh, didn't meet sales expectations, my thought is always, what is the expectation for this thing to sell 20 million copies? Like, no game does that except for like maybe Call of Duty or Madden, but that's it.
I understand that Prince of Persia is a franchise for them, but think about the last time you came up with a Prince of Persia game. The series was on a decline at that point. Like, you're coming back in a genre that, yes, it's sort of similar to the way it was originally, but not the way people have remembered playing it, because it's not what the previous Prince of Persia games were.
And they can't even get that Prince of Persia remake off the ground.
Exactly. Yeah. They had to restart it, and it's not coming out for maybe 2 years, if that.
Yeah.
So it does. And then you just delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like it's just like you had the terrible Skull and Bones this year. Like you've had no. This is the only good news you as a company have had all year, and then you come out with DLC, and maybe that didn't spark the sales bonanza you wanted it to spark. But it's like this is your fault. You chose to keep it off of Steam for 7 months. And that's whether you like it or not, whether you like not giving Steam their 30% or not, when you talk about discoverability, time and time again, the platform that pushes that besides the Switch is Steam. And you don't bring it out on Steam from word go, you're going to suffer for it. People are going to wait. How many times does this have to continue to happen for people to get it? That people will wait for it to show up on Steam and not buy it on these other platforms. Even if it's stupid and it's just a launcher or whatever, people have their platform of choice and they won't buy it on Epic or much less the Ubisoft launcher Connect thing, whatever. You wanted people to pay for it, which this is the way I played it with the streaming service. So I didn't buy the game because I spent $17 and just played the game. And then, okay, I was going to do like you, buy it on a sale later. But that's their fault. Again, you decided to promote this stuff instead of telling people, hey, go buy it for $50 right now. Or how about you release it for less? Because most Metroidvanias don't cost that much. I know it's about, okay, all the stuff you put into the game and the graphical quality and all that stuff. And it's a great game. And sure, you can price whatever you want. But again, like you said, it matters to people, especially when it's Ubisoft and people are used to Ubisoft puts their games on sale really fast. And there's a lot of people that are going to say, okay, I'll wait for that. And also then the other kicker that we haven't mentioned yet is Power World took all of its oxygen out of the room. The next week, after everybody was lauding the game and talking about how awesome it is, immediately it felt like the weekend it came out, everybody was already started talking about Power World. And then Power World became the conversation. Nobody was playing anything else. The game is $20 cheaper. And, like at that point, there's no visibility for you. Yes, should Ubisoft keep marketing after the game comes out? Yes, but I do think that there's a part of that where it's like, that game needed to be the conversation of January. And I don't think anybody expected Power to come out and become the behemoth that it was for like that month and a half or whatever that it was. So there's part of that's not Ubisoft's fault, but the rest of it is. And this sucks for that team because this was an amazing game that unfortunately is not going to probably get the recognition it deserves aside from, Game of the Year noms and stuff like that. But it won't get to continue on. Even if it does win Game of the Year noms and stuff, they've already decided to disband that team. So unfortunately, there's not going to be a Prince of Persia Lost Crown 2, which sucks.
And I can assure you it wouldn't win any Game of the Year awards or nominations.
Well, it'll win. It'll be in the conversation, right? It'll be in people's top 10s and stuff like that. I've seen people that still say it is still their Game of the Year or whatever. Obviously, this was before like Metaphor came out, so maybe once you get into the you start talking about everything that's come out in October and stuff that comes in November, okay, maybe you're like pushing it out at that point, but still. I think it sucks because this is Ubisoft's fault. As the guy that you always see on Twitter talking from Larian, he put it nicely. He said it's the hardest part is of making an 85 plus Metacritic game is actually making it. It's not what happens to it after it comes out. That's the easier part. And that's the part that's on the company and not the dev team. And it sucks that the dev team is being, I guess you couldn't say they're not being punished because thankfully nobody got laid off.
Right.
But we should be celebrating this the company should be celebrating it, and they should be talking about how awesome this game was and building momentum for, oh, now we're going to have 2 Prince of Persia things going, the remake and the next game of this. And now it's like, okay, well, look forward to the remake whenever it comes out in 2026, 2027. If anybody even cares about it still by then, sure.
You're forgetting the other Prince of Persia game they have going on. That's like an
early that Rogue still. One. What the?
Yeah.
It's. Did anybody even care about that after it came out? Like, no.
That's the problem. I mean,
yeah.
Prince of Persia it's a kind of long running series, but it's not a super impactful one for dudes under 30 or 40.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's like that historic game that when you talk about like, oh, what this game did for game development, but not for.
Yeah, if you ask, I mean, forget your daughter, but if you even if you ask like a 20-year-old, like, have you ever heard of Prince of Persia? They're gonna go like, fuck no, like, what's that?
Yeah.
So, at least like something like Metroid, that's been fairly dormant over the past 20 years, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Except for, I mean, they made the Prime games, but those weren't like quote unquote like traditional Metroid games.
Right.
But Samus has been in like every Smash Brothers game. So that has kept that character at least relatively popular.
And they've had the GBA games and the other, the traditional Metroid 2D
or even
games.
Like another good example is like Star Fox. Like, when was the last Star Fox game? Like,
right.
I mean, the Wii U, maybe.
But that was because of the failure of the last one. And where they said basically we're not going to do any more It's almost it's got the F-Zero treatment of.
I'm saying though that Star Fox, like, that's another long running franchise that's fairly not doing great, but most people like know it because of like Smash Brothers or because of other ancillary stuff, not just because of like.
If you didn't play games in the PS2, 360, GameCube era, you have no idea what Prince of Persia. Is when those games were hot.
And even if you did, you're gonna look at this one and go, "What the fuck is this?" Like,
right? Because it doesn't play like those games at all, right?
Yeah. So it's a shame, but it's not totally unexpected. And again, it's the thing I keep thinking about is like, Ubisoft doesn't want to give people what they want. People want new Splinter Cell, and it's like, well, we're gonna make a new Ghost Recon game. It's like, great.
I mean, technically, Splinter Cell is still in development, so we'll see when, if it comes out or whatever.
Right.
But it's Ubisoft. What can you do? That's what they they have not been making good decisions for a while.
Yeah, and I saw they're trying to go back to being privately owned, or because
we talked about that too.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't think that's going to save them.
Yeah, the people who are trying to go private are the ones making these dumbass decisions in the first place. So that's not. It's like, great. You can really drive it into the ground then.
Well, the only reason they have to include the Guillemot family is because if everybody got crazy about Xbox owning Activision, if Tencent buys Ubisoft, that's gonna cause all the trade unions, or not all the commissions and all the FTC and all that, to the CMA, all them to go bonkers about that too.
I mean, it might, but the difference between Tencent and Microsoft, because Tencent doesn't have a console.
True, but Ubisoft is also like overvalued. So unless they start like lowering the value of what they feel Ubisoft is worth, maybe not.